तो चलिए अब हम अपना पहला क्वेश्चन देखते हैं. Understanding preparation of consolidated balance sheet. And this is the simplest of all the questions that you can get because यहाँ पे आपकी जो acquisition और consolidation date है वो same है. So what is happening here is that my acquisition and consolidation date, these two dates are same. So let us read through the question. Problem 1. Balance sheets of Ram Limited and its subsidiary Lakshman Limited drawn up as on 31st March 2010 are as under. So on the asset side, you have basically the plant and machinery, furniture and fixtures, and investment in Kush Limited. Basically, this is not Kush Limited, this is Lakshman Limited. There's a slight bit of an error here. This is Lakshman Limited. Then on the credit side, I have my equity share capital, profit and loss, and sundry creditors. So basically, I am holding 80% shares in Kush Limited, and therefore it is a subsidiary for me. So when I prepare my consolidated financial statement, I have to account for it in the financial statement. The question which is given to me is prepare a consolidated balance sheet of Ram Limited. So basically, I need to prepare the consolidated balance sheet of Ram Limited. Okay. So let us see how we prepare this consolidated balance sheet. The best way to attempt these questions on consolidated balance sheets is to move on a line by line basis. So what happened is that in my case, this is the simple example because the balance sheet is also on 31/3/2010 and the acquisition date is also 31/3/2010. So what do? I need to prepare a consolidated balance sheet of Ram Limited. And this balance sheet is on 31st March 2010, which also happens to be my acquisition date. So I move on with the right hand side. The idea here is that I need to consolidate them. So my plant and machinery, which is 6 lakh, plus I add it for Lakshman, which is 3,60,000. So in the outer column, I get my 9,60,000 as the plant and machine. Very simple. There is no adjustment. In consolidation, what I did was I did the sum of these two. Similarly, for furniture and fixture, there is no adjustment. So I just straight away consolidate these two, 2,50,000. Then comes the next one. And this is important. So what has happened here is the third one is my investments. So I'm getting 80% of shares which I acquired in Kush Limited for 2,40,000. And what is the share capital of Lakshman Limited? It is 2 lakh. So basically what happened is I need to compute my goodwill or capital reserve, which is normally referred to as cost of control. And how do I compute my cost of control? The first thing is, I have explained this to you earlier also, but let me explain it again. What is the reason why cost of control comes into existence? Normally, when the holding company, in this case Ram Limited, acquires a controlling stake in the other subsidiary, the net asset value that it gets, suppose आपकी net asset value Lakshman Limited की थी 5 लाख रुपए, मैंने एक्वायर किया 80%. अगर 80% एक्वायर किया तो उसके लिए नॉर्मली मुझे पे करना था 4 लाख रुपए, लेकिन अगर मैंने 4 लाख से कुछ भी ज्यादा पे किया है, then that is the goodwill which I have given, or rather the cost which I have paid to acquire control of that company, and this is normally referred to as cost of control. तो इस केस में मैंने कितना पे किया? मैंने पे किया, my investment amount is 2,40,000. Now from that investment, so this number is gone. The best way to achieve these questions is start ticking them as you complete each one of them. So this is, I have completed. I'm just excluding it. Now what did I get by paying this 2,40,000? I got 80% of shares of Kush Limited, which I had acquired on 31/3/2010, and the share capital of Kush Limited is actually 2 lakh. So I am owning 80% of this. So 80% of 2 lakh will be equity share interest. How much is that? It is 1,60,000, which is nothing but 80% of 2 lakh. What else did I get and how much? So accordingly, out of this 2 lakh, basically 80% is what I own. So who owns the balance 40%? The balance 40% is owned by the outsiders, and that is basically referred to as the minority interest. I also need to compute the minority interest. Now what is the minority interest? Is the interest in equity share capital, which is 40,000 in the present case, right? So 40,000 is owned by the minority in the present case. Now in my credit side of Ram Limited's consolidated balance sheet, I would have equity share capital, which is 5 lakh, right? So this is again the adjustment I have already done. Then comes my profit and loss account. So this is the adjustment I have done, so I have ticked it. Profit and loss account. How much is the profit and loss account? It is 3 lakh. And how much is the profit and loss account of Lakshman Limited? It is 1,50,000. Now the important thing to note here is that this 1,50,000 is on what date? It is on 31/3/2010. As I had discussed earlier also with you, that in this case 1,50,000 is what I have paid on 31/3/2000, and 1,50,000, 80% of that belongs to me. So when I paid this 2,40,000, what I got was the equity share capital and the share in profits. Now normally this profit is classified into pre-acquisition profit and post-acquisition profit, but because in this case the date is same, so the entire profit is pre-acquisition profit. 80% of that is 1,20,000. So when I paid 2,40,000, what I got was my equity share capital and a share in the reserve, which is 80%. Now in this case, basically what has happened is that what I got was 2,80,000 and what I paid was 40,000. So I got a gain of how much? 40,000. And this gain is basically referred to as capital reserve. So this goes into my balance sheet as capital reserve. Okay. Now I also need to see how much is the minority interest that I have. So out of the profit and loss account, I got 1,20,000. The minority got 30,000. So the total minority interest became 70,000. Again, I go back to the my balance sheet and I add minority interest here as 70,000. Then I have sundry creditors. So sundry creditors is 3 lakh. There is no adjustment that needs to be done here. So basically in my consolidated balance sheet, which is here, I add 3 lakh of sundry creditors. Is there anything else I need to do? I think no. So I will just do the total of these, which will be 12 lakh 10,000 here. Again here 5 plus 3 8, 8 17 9 10 and 3 12 lakh 10,000 here. So this is how I prepared my consolidated balance sheet. Two things important, again repeating them because we are in the very initial stages. This will get on to become difficult as we move along. First is, how do I compute the cost of control? What do you mean by cost of control? Cost of control is nothing but what I paid for and what I got in return. What I paid for is basically my investment. Out of that I got the equity share capital and a share in the existing profit as on the date of acquisition. Because the date of acquisition was same, I sum total. So what I got was 2,80,000, which is more than 2,40,000, or rather what I paid for it. 40,000 becomes my capital reserve, which I take it to my balance sheet. Similarly, out of these total asset, what belongs to the minority is basically my, just give me a second, equity share capital and the profit and loss account, which is 70,000. I take it to the credit side of the balance sheet. So this was one of the simpler problems I have done for you. As we move along, there will be more difficult questions which start coming in, or rather this is one of the most basic calculations which is there. As we move along, we will do even difficult questions. Please keep on referring back to the previous lecture relating to computation of cost of control, minority interest, and the meaning of these chapters. And as we move along, it will become more and more easier for you to comprehend and do these problems. So have a happy rolling, and we will see you soon in our next session, which will cover some more problems of intercompany holding or the consolidated financial statements.